I moved to a new city last year. I needed a fresh start after my long relationship ended. I found an apartment complex that was a strange mix of modern and retro. The walls were thin, and I could hear my neighbors getting ready for a New Year's Eve party. They laughed and played music, and I sat alone, trying to focus on my art. I thought working would help me cope with my loneliness. As midnight approached, laughter and music faded away. A sudden silence fell over everything. I checked my phone for texts. Nothing. A chill ran down my spine and I felt uneasy. Something wasn't right. I tried to shake it off and focus on my brushes, but about an hour later, I heard it. Footsteps. They came from the corner of my apartment. I looked up, but there was nothing. My heart raced. Maybe it was my imagination. I glanced at my brush. It had shifted. I knew I left it by the canvas, but now it was on the floor, a few feet away. I felt a lump in my throat. Was I losing it? I got up and took a deep breath, walking over to pick it up. When I bent down, I saw shadows darting at the edge of my vision. I turned, but nothing was there. I told myself it was just the shadows from the streetlights outside. Maybe I was just tired. But the strange occurrences kept happening. Music swelled from the walls, only to stop suddenly. My heart raced again as I crept closer to the door, peering through the peephole. I hoped to see what was happening outside. What I saw made my skin crawl. Figures were moving in the hallway. I opened my door, but it was empty. Just a long, quiet corridor. I hesitated, unsure if I could trust my eyes. I glanced back into my apartment and froze. I felt like someone was right behind me. I turned quickly, but there was nothing. Just silence. Shadows stretched longer across the walls, and I felt cold. Then I heard it again. The muffled laughter from the party next door. I couldn't make sense of it. Was I dreaming? I blinked hard, but the shapes flickered at the corners of my vision, almost dancing. I asked, "Is anyone there?" That was it. Just silence in return. I stood there, unsure what to do. I felt exposed, as if something unseen was watching me. I backed away slowly, the chill creeping across my skin. My heart pounded in my chest. The silence pressed down on me, squeezing the air from my lungs. Finally, a soft voice whispered, "Why are you here?" I jolted, looking around. No one was there. I felt trapped in the moment, caught in the dark. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just outside my vision. I stepped back from the door, feeling the weight of the darkness. Something was very wrong. I never forgot that night. The next day, I woke up to bright sunlight streaming through my window. I sat up slowly, trying to shake off the remnants of the night before. Maybe it had all been a bad dream. I made myself breakfast, but I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. Each noise in the apartment made me tense. Each shadow felt menacing. I needed to talk to someone. I decided to visit my neighbor from the party, hoping to find answers. I knocked on their door, half expecting nothing, but it swung open almost immediately. A young woman with wild curly hair and a big smile stood there. "Hey, you're the artist, right?" she said, excitement lighting up her eyes. "Yeah, I'm Rachel," I stammered, my nerves creeping back. "I heard your party last night. It was lively." "I'm Ashley. We had a great time. You should have joined us. Come in." I hesitated, but stepped inside. The apartment was bright and colorful, filled with party decorations and the faint scent of spilled champagne. We sat on the couch, and I forced myself to relax. "So, what brings you to this neighborhood?" Ashley asked, taking a sip of a leftover drink. "I moved here for a fresh start. Just needed something different after everything," I replied, my voice almost a whisper. "Oh, I get that. New beginnings are important. But, have you heard any weird noises in the building?" Ashley's expression shifted. "You heard it too?" I felt hope bloom, but it quickly turned to dread. "What do you mean?" "Last night was strange. Some people got freaked out. We heard voices, shadows moving in the halls." My stomach dropped. "I thought it was just me." Ashley nodded, looking serious. "Some say it's the energy of the place. I don't know. They say old buildings can hold on to things. What kind of things? I asked, my heart racing. Things that don't like to be disturbed. She laughed nervously, but it didn't ease my worry. Before I could ask more, a loud bang came from the hallway. My chest tightened. I exchanged worried glances with Ashley. She slowly got up, peeking out the door. "What was that?" I whispered. She turned back to me, her face pale. "I don't know." Just then, I saw it. A shadow darted past the doorframe. I blinked, convinced I was seeing things. But the air felt heavy, saturated with something I couldn't quite name. I stepped forward, the instinct to chase after the shadow pulling me along. "Wait!" Ashley called, but I was already halfway out the door. The corridor was empty. I looked both ways, heart racing. The shadows flickered, creating an eerie sense of movement that made my skin crawl. Then I noticed it. A door at the end of the hall slightly ajar, dark inside. I couldn't resist. As I walked closer, a soft whisper drifted through the cracks. "Help me," it said. I didn't want to, but I had to know. That's when I heard the laughter again, this time closer. My breath caught in my throat. I stepped back, glancing at Ashley. She looked terrified. "Rachel, we should go back inside." But I was rooted in place. I felt drawn to that door, compelled by something beyond my understanding. Before I could make a decision, the laughter turned into a shriek that echoed through the hallway. I jumped back, adrenaline surging. Someone was in the house. I spun around, heart racing. "We need to get out of here," I yelled, grabbing Ashley's wrist. She hesitated, glancing at the open door and then back at me, eyes wide. "Wait! What if there's someone in there?" she protested. "Exactly!" I didn't want to argue. The laughter felt alive, echoing along the walls. It was wrong. I could feel it deep inside me. Ashley pulled away from me, her face a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Maybe they need help? Or maybe they're the ones causing all the noise," I snapped, my voice shaky. "Please, let's just go." The shadows seemed to stretch and twist around us like fingers reaching out. I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. I glanced down the hallway, hoping for a glimpse of something, anything that would clarify what was happening. "I'm not leaving," Ashley said firmly. "I need to know who's in there. I can't just ignore it." Before I could argue further, she stepped toward the door. I moved to follow, panic surging. "No, don't." But she was already pushing the door open. It creaked ominously, revealing a dark room filled with the faint outline of furniture. The air smelled musty, like it had been closed off from the world for ages. "Ashley," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is a bad idea." "I have to see," she insisted, stepping inside and disappearing into the shadows. My heart pounded as I hovered in the doorway, trying to swallow back my dread. "Ashley! Don't go too far!" I took a hesitant step inside, the cold air wrapping around me. I felt like I was stepping into another world. The faint sound of whispers filled the space, wrapping around me, drowning out my thoughts. Then there was a loud crash from within the room. I jumped, adrenaline coursing through me. "Ashley!" Silence. Heart pounding, I closed my eyes for a second, trying to gather my courage. It was too quiet. I took another step, then peeked further into the room. Everything was still, but the unease sat like a heavy weight on my chest. "Ashley, are you okay?" I called again, my voice cracking. Just then, a soft, distinct sob broke through the silence. My blood ran cold. "Ashley!" I called out, panic rising. "Where are you?" No answer, just the echoes of that soft, desperate sound. Against my better judgment, I crept further into the room. Rounding a corner, I finally spotted Ashley huddled against the wall. The light from the hallway barely illuminated her face, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Rachel," she said, and I felt a rush of relief. "You need to see this." "What? What's going on?" She pointed shakily to a dusty mirror hanging on the wall. The surface was covered in grime, but it reflected something strange. I stepped closer, my heart racing. In the dim light, I saw my own reflection. But there was something else. A dark figure loomed behind me, just out of sight, its eyes glinting like shards of glass. "Behind you!" Ashley shrieked, but it was too late. I spun around, but nothing was there, just the dusty room and the echoes of our breaths. Then everything went dark. I couldn't see a thing. "Ashley!" I screamed, feeling my way around in panic. But all I could hear was silence. I fumbled through the darkness, my hands brushing against the cold walls, searching for any glimmer of light or a sign of Ashley. "Please, just say something," I gasped, trying to keep my rising fear in check. There was no response. The silence pressed in on me, thick and suffocating. Just when my heart felt like it would beat out of my chest, a faint sound made me freeze. A whisper? It was low, almost melodic, but it twisted through the darkness, chilling me to the bone. "Rachel." My breath caught in my throat. It sounded like my name, but distorted, as if echoing from a place far away. I edged forward, guided only by that eerie whisper, hoping it was Ashley calling for me. "Ashley?" The whisper came again, but now it held a mocking tone. "Come closer." Panic ignited in my gut. "No, I won't!" I shouted back, but my voice sounded small against the oppressive shadows. I couldn't stand still. I turned, blindly stumbling in the opposite direction, desperate for an escape. Then, out of the blackness, I felt something brush against my arm. I screamed, stumbling backward until I hit the wall. My body reacted before my mind could process it, heart racing, as I readied myself to fight whatever lurked in the dark. "Rachel!" Ashley's voice broke through the gloom, sounding breathless and disoriented. I bolted toward it. "I'm here! Stay where you are!" I entered the beam of low light that spilled from a nearby window, finally spotting her. She was standing by the mirror, her face pale. I rushed to her side, relief flooding through me. "What just happened?" I stammered. "Did you hear the whispers?" She shook her head slowly, her wide eyes fixated on the mirror. "I saw something. In the mirror. It wasn't just you." I swallowed hard, glancing back at the tarnished glass. My reflection stared back, but something dark lurked in the depths, shifting as if alive. "What do you mean? What did you see?" "I don't know. It looked like a shadow. It moved on its own," she said, trembling. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks. But then, the hairs on the back of my neck prickled. "But then what?" "That laugh came back," she whispered, looking around nervously. "A few seconds ago it sounded so close." As if on cue, the laughter erupted once more, echoing through the room, filling every corner. It was deafening, throaty, and cruel, like it was taunting us. "We have to get out." I grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door, but our path was suddenly blocked. A shape loomed in front of us, shifting from nothing into a tangible form. I barely had time to register the outline of a figure in the shadows before it lunged. My heart dropped. I wanted to scream, to run, but all I could do was stand frozen. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the shape vanished, leaving only the lingering sound of mocking laughter. "Ashley, we need to go, now!" I sprinted toward the door, dragging her along, but a strong gust of wind slammed it shut just as we reached it. The force sent us stumbling backward. "We're trapped," I gasped, my mind racing. Then I remembered the other exits. "The window!" I shouted, pointing. But as I turned, the mirror gleamed ominously in the dim light. I could feel my heart racing as I locked eyes with my reflection. Only it wasn't just me staring back anymore. The mirror's surface rippled like water, distorting my reflection further. For a second, I could have sworn I saw another figure standing behind me, a dark silhouette with no face. I blinked, and it was gone. But the impression lingered in my mind like a bitter taste. "Ashley," I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. "Do you see that?" Her gaze was glued to the glass. "What is happening?" she asked, her eyes wide with fear. I can't." Suddenly the laughter returned, echoing even louder than before. It filled the room as if the walls themselves were mocking us, and I felt my resolve crumble under its weight. "We can't stay here!" I shouted, trying to drown it out. My instinct screamed at me to run, to escape this nightmare. "We need to find another way out." I tugged on Ashley's arm, forcing her to look away from the mirror. Focus, let's get to the window. We moved together, keeping our eyes glued to the door, ready for anything that might block our escape again. As we approached the window, I pressed against it, desperately trying to pry it open. "It won't budge!" I cried, panic clawing at my throat. "Help me!" Ashley shouted, pushing beside me. The cold glass felt unforgiving against my skin. Just then, a powerful gust of wind blasted through the room, chilling us to the bone. It flicked the curtains wildly, as if trying to pull us out. "Get back!" I yelled, yanking Ashley away just as the glass shattered, sending shards cascading to the floor. We were too close. The sound of breaking glass was almost drowned out by the laughter, which now seemed to swirl around us, enveloping us in a cocoon of terror. I couldn't take it anymore. "We need to leave. We should go back to the hall." But the moment I suggested it, the whispers returned, weaving through the space like a tendril. "Stay. Stay with us." "No!" I shouted, clenching my fists. "We're leaving!" When I turned, the dark shape reformed in front of me, now more solid than before. It stood tall, blocking our escape route. I could make out faint details: long limbs, a wide frame, and a face I couldn't quite see, obscured in shadows. "Rachel, what is that?" Ashley trembled beside me, gripping my sleeve. "I don't know," I snapped, feeling a surge of anger mixed with fear. "But we have to push past it." With a burst of adrenaline, I charged forward, dragging Ashley behind me. As we collided with the figure, a rush of cold air enveloped us, and I felt something brush against my mind, like a dark thought whispering secrets I didn't want to know. Then everything went dark. I stumbled, disoriented, until I found myself sprawled on the ground. The laughter faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. My heart pounded as I looked around, realizing Ashley was gone. "Ashley!" I called, panic clawing at my chest. The only answer was the hollow echo of my own voice. But that's when I noticed the mirror again, the shattered shards shimmering on the floor. And in the fragments, I saw silhouettes moving. Not just one, but many. I fought to catch my breath as dread washed over me. What had I unleashed? I scrambled to my feet, instinctively looking toward the shards of glass scattered across the floor. Each fragment reflected quick glimpses of shadows twisting and turning, taunting me with their movements. I held my breath, my heart racing. "Ashley!" I shouted again, my voice trembling. The silence felt suffocating, as if the room itself was pressing in on me. Steeling myself, I stepped toward the mirror's remnants, hoping one of the shards could somehow guide me. It didn't take long for a sharp glint to catch my eye. I leaned down, fingers brushing the cold surface. There, in one of the pieces, I thought I saw her. A fleeting image of Ashley, looking directly at me, her eyes wide with terror. "Rachel!" she called, her voice muffled, like she was trapped in a dream. I froze, paralyzed by the sound. "Help me!" The panic surged back, more intense than ever. "Where are you?" I shouted, straining to hear anything that could lead me to her. Then I noticed something, a dark shadow shifting in the corner of the room. It hovered, not quite solid, yet somehow more distinct than before. It was just as I was about to call out again that I felt a cold breath sweep past me, sending a shiver down my spine. I turned, and there it was, the shape looming closer, its presence almost suffocating. "No." "Not you again," I mumbled, retreating a step. The figure reached out, long fingers elongating as if to grasp me. I stumbled back, almost falling onto the shards of glass, but something held me steady. Adrenaline surged. I had to get away. The whispers crept back into my mind, a low, menacing chant that promised secrets and lies. "Stay. Stay with us." "No!" I shouted, shaking my head. I refused to listen. The shadows began to blend into one another, creating a swirling mass that threatened to consume me. The chanting grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. Suddenly, something tugged at my sleeve. I looked down, expecting to see Ashley, but instead, I saw a dark tendril, thin and shadowy, pulling tighter. I gasped and yanked my arm away, feeling the chill grip of the dark energy. I backed away until I hit the wall, the cold surface offering no comfort. My mind raced with options. There had to be a way out of this horror. My eyes darted around, searching for something, anything, that would help me escape. That's when I spotted a small door at the far end of the room, half obscured by thick shadows. Hope flickered in my chest. "I'll find you, Ashley," I yelled, diving toward the door. I felt the pressure of the shadows hit me like a wave, but I didn't falter. I twisted the handle with trembling fingers, praying it would open. To my surprise, it gave way, swinging open into darkness. I stepped through, but the moment I crossed the threshold, I heard Ashley's name echo in my head. "Help me! Don't leave me!" I hesitated for just a split second. Was I making the right choice? Then, from behind me, I felt the cold breath again, followed by the whispers, louder now. "Stay." I couldn't wait anymore. I slammed the door shut and stumbled into the void beyond, plunging into the unknown. What was waiting for me on the other side? The darkness enveloped me almost instantly. My breath quickened as I stepped into the cold, quiet space. I felt disoriented, like a pebble dropped into a vast ocean. I stood still for a moment, adjusting to the absence of light. My heart thudded in my chest, echoing in the silence. "Ashley," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. In response, a low rustle stirred the air, sending chills across my skin. I took a deep breath and forced myself to move forward, each step cautious. Ahead, I spied what appeared to be a faint light flickering in the distance. It was small but steady, almost like a candle flame. My instincts told me to head toward it, that maybe it could lead me to Ashley, or at the very least out of this unsettling darkness. As I approached, shadows crept along the walls, darting back as if they could sense my fear. The light grew stronger, illuminating the edges of a narrow hallway. I could see it better now, a door at the end, slightly ajar. My heart raced again, hope mingling with dread. I reached for the doorknob, but before I could grasp it, I heard a soft giggle. It was so unexpected, so out of place, that I paused. The sound echoed, twisting through the air like smoke. "Ashley?" I called again, clarity blurring into doubt. The giggle came again, this time closer. I peered into the shadows, straining to see who, or what, was there. But the darkness clung to everything, shaping the air into a thick veil. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A small figure darted past the door and slipped into a room adjacent to the hallway. My heart dropped. Was it her? I rushed toward the door, feeling a desperate urge to follow. I pushed it open, expecting to find Ashley, but what lay before me made my stomach churn. The room was filled with old toys, some familiar, some forgotten. They were scattered across the floor, ghostly reminders of childhood. A dusty rocking horse swayed gently, though no wind stirred the air. Then I noticed something odd. A small music box opened on the shelf, and its soft melody drifted out, hauntingly sweet. "Help me!" A voice rang through the room, silencing the music. My breath caught in my throat. It was Ashley's voice, clear and piercing. Except this time it sounded closer, demanding. I spun around, searching in vain for the source. Was she here? I took a tentative step deeper into the room. "Ashley, where are you?" I pleaded, eyes wide, scanning every corner. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed behind me, the door I had just walked through slamming shut. My heart dropped. I whipped around, but the shadowy figure I had seen earlier now stood against the door. It became clearer. It was a child, a small girl with big, hollow eyes. The shadows enveloped her like a second skin. "Stay with us," she whispered with an eerie calm. I felt my pulse quicken as I backed away, a chill creeping over me. Something told me there was more to her presence, something dark and unforgiving. I turned to flee, but the room twisted, the walls closing in around me. The path was shifting, and the music box's melody turned discordant, a wild cacophony that drowned out everything else. In the chaos, I caught sight of another door, one that shimmered faintly, begging me to escape. With one last glance at the child figure, I sprinted toward it. The name Ashley rang in my ears with every desperate stride. I didn't care what lay behind me. I just needed to get out. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard her voice once more, frantic and sharp. "Don't leave me!" I froze, caught between fear and the longing to help her. but the door was the only way I could go. What was waiting for me on the other side? As I turned the knob, the door creaked open, spilling a surprising light into the dark room. I stumbled through, almost tripping over the threshold. The air smelled different here, fresh yet distant, like rain-soaked earth after a long drought. I quickly shut the door behind me, the slamming sound echoing as if to trap the chaos inside. I found myself in an empty hallway, the walls painted a pale white that almost glowed in the dull light. Each step felt like a heartbeat. I paused to catch my breath and strain my ears for any sign of movement. "Ashley," I called again. But all that answered me was silence. The corridor stretched ahead, merging into the shadows further down. A faint echo of my voice bounced back to me, reminding me just how alone I felt. What kind of place was this? Why was I alone? I forced myself to keep moving, drawn by an instinct to find her. Ahead, I spotted another door. This one was just a little cracked open. I hesitated. The last door I opened had led me into a nightmare. I didn't want to repeat that mistake. Still, I needed to know. Pushing the door open slowly, I peeked inside. The room was dark, with what looked like an old table covered in strange glass bottles. Some glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows across the walls. The sight sent a shiver right down my spine. That's when I noticed it. In the far corner, a shape trembled. My breath hitched as I squinted into the shadows, trying to discern if it was a trick of the light. I stepped inside, and as I did, the shape became clear. It was a mirror, cracked and dusty, reflecting an image I did not recognize. "Who's there?" I stammered, my voice trembling as I turned quickly. No one. Just the emptiness of the room surrounding me. I had to get it together. The last thing I needed was to give in to fear. Then I heard a soft whisper, seemingly coming from the mirror. "Help me." The voice sent chills racing down my spine. I stepped closer to the mirror, my heart pounding. The reflection was of a girl, no older than 10, with the same hollow eyes as the child I had seen before. "Ashley?" I breathed, reaching out instinctively. The glass felt cold beneath my fingertips. "What do you need?" Suddenly, the mirror's surface shimmered. The image of the girl distorted, morphing into something darker, more twisted. It was the child again, but now her face wore a grim smile, and her eyes seemed to dance with malice. "You should stay with us too," she cooed in a sing-song voice. I stepped back, my blood running cold. The room closed in again, disoriented by the unease spreading through me. I couldn't stay. I had to get out. I spun back toward the door, only to find it gone. Panicking, I knelt beside the strange table, searching for anything that might help me escape this place. That's when I saw it, a small, intricately carved key glimmering among the bottles. Hope surged in my chest. I lunged for it, my fingers closing around the cool metal. But as I did, the whispers intensified, merging into a wailing sound that filled my ears and threatened to pull me under. I clutched the key tightly, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I needed to find a way out. But as I glanced around, another door began to appear across the room, flickering like a mirage. I hesitated, doubt creeping in. Would this lead me to safety, or deeper into the nightmare? I had no choice. One thought dominated my mind. I had to keep moving. As I stepped toward the flickering door, my heart raced with uncertainty. The whispers had grown louder, curling around me like a serpent, urging me to stay. I shook my head, trying to drown them out. The passageway was my only option. I gripped the key tightly and pushed through the door. It swung open easily, and a rush of frigid air greeted me like an unwelcome friend. The space beyond was dimly lit, casting long shadows that seemed to flicker and stretch as if they were alive. I stepped into what looked like a long, narrow room lined with tall shelves. They were filled with dusty books and unlabeled jars that contained unknown substances. The atmosphere felt heavy, charged with something unseen. I felt a sense of dread wrap around my chest as I moved deeper inside. At the far end of the room, I noticed a large blackboard covered in strange symbols and frantic scribbles. It was like someone had been trying to decipher a code, or perhaps a warning. I approached it cautiously, drawn by a compulsion I didn't understand. The moment my eyes scanned the board, a familiar voice rang out from behind me. "Why are you here?" I whirled around to find a tall figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the light from the other room. My heart raced as I strained to see the face hidden in shadows. "Ashley?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure stepped closer, revealing a woman with wild hair and piercing eyes. She wore an old, tattered dress like she had just walked out of a ghost story. "You shouldn't have come," she said, her voice low and shaky. "They'll come for you too." I opened my mouth to ask her to explain, but before I could speak, the room vibrated with a low hum. Something buzzed in the shadows around us. Flickering blue lights began to swirl, illuminating the space with a haunting glow. The jars and books on the shelves rattled as if caught in a storm. "What's happening?" I shouted over the noise. "They know you're here," she screamed back, her eyes wild with fear. "You need to leave now." I turned to run, but the path felt warped and shifting. The shelves loomed higher, feeling like they were closing in on me. I grabbed the key from my pocket, thinking it might unlock some hidden exit, but it felt worthless against the chaotic energy in the room. In a panic, I swung around to face the door, but it was already gone, just like the last one. The only way out was through the swirling lights that beckoned from the far end of the room. Without thinking, I took off, sprinting toward the glowing chaos. Just as I reached it, a deafening sound ripped through the air. The hum escalated into a wail that made my skin crawl. I felt myself being pulled backward. Something was fighting to keep me in the room. And then I was engulfed in the brightness. There was a flash, and everything went dark. I don't know how long I lay there, disoriented. I slowly opened my eyes to find I was no longer in that eerie chamber. I was back in the empty hallway. The pale walls both familiar and terrifying. Yet, something had changed. The whispers were gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. I pushed myself off the floor, my heart hammering. I had escaped, but a lingering dread washed over me. I had the key clutched tightly in my hand, but now I wondered. Had I escaped at all? A flicker of movement caught my eye from down the hallway. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't done yet. What waited for me next? I scrambled to my feet, instinctively moving away from whatever loomed in the corridor. I had a terrible feeling that whatever had pulled me back would pursue me again. I glanced around, gathering my thoughts, but the stillness of the hallway laced with an unsettling chill made it impossible to think clearly. Fingers trembling, I felt the cold key in my hand. There had to be a door that led to safety, one that could free me from this confusion, a way to find Ashley too. I just needed to find it. I edged down the hallway, the only sound my breath echoing against the silence. My heart beat rapidly as I glanced into empty doorways. The shadows seemed to throb as I moved past, almost as if they had a pulse of their own. "Ashley," I called, but only the churning silence replied. At the end of the hallway, I spotted another door, this one slightly larger and more ornate than the others. A delicate design adorned its surface, symbols that looked eerily familiar from the blackboard in the other room. I hesitated, wondering if this was another trap or my only chance of escape. The air seemed to thicken around me as I reached for the doorknob. "It's just a door," I reminded myself, pushing down the terror that gnawed at my insides. I had to do this. I had to find her. The knob turned easily, and I pulled the door open. Light flooded the space, blinding me for a moment. Shielding my eyes, I stepped inside, my heart pounding. Was I finally safe? The room was filled with light and warmth, starkly contrasting the dark, twisted hallways I'd just escaped. I blinked to clear my vision, trying to adjust to the brightness. There were no dark shadows lurking, no eerie whispers. Instead, the walls were lined with vibrant paintings, their colors swirling beautifully. "Ashley!" I called out again, my voice echoing in the serene space. "Rachel!" a familiar voice called back, and I froze. It was her. I turned to see Ashley standing at the far end of the room, her face a mixture of hope and fear. Relief washed over me, and I barely contained the urge to run to her. "I can't believe you found me," she exclaimed, rushing into my arms. I felt a wash of warmth and familiarity as we hugged tightly, like returning home. But before I could answer her, A soft laughter erupted from somewhere in the room, and I felt the color drain from my face. I pulled away, glancing around, searching for the source of the sound. "It's just a room," Ashley said, but her eyes darted nervously. "We should leave." I nodded, feeling the tension rise again. "Let's find a way out." As if mocking us, the laughter echoed again, but this time with a haunting quality that sent chills down my spine. I suddenly felt a pull at my mind, like the shadows from before were still lurking, hidden in the edges of this bright sanctuary. We moved cautiously, trying door after door, but they all led us back into the same room, as if it was meant to confine us. Panic clawed at my chest. The laughter ricocheted, drowning out my thoughts with its taunting melody. "Where do we go?" Ashley asked, panic in her voice. "I don't know," I shouted back, feeling a swell of desperation. "Maybe it's the key. It has to unlock something." As if in response, the laughter crescendoed, and the walls shifted subtly, as if they were alive, pushing in on us. The paintings morphed, swirling grotesquely, twisting into shapes that mocked our fear. I could feel my pulse racing as shadows crept ever closer, hungry for us. "Ashley, we need to focus." My voice came out harsher than I intended. I couldn't allow despair to take over. "Let's find an exit. The key has to work on one of these doors." We moved together, hoping to find the right one, ignoring the looming darkness that pressed against us. The atmosphere felt thick with anticipation, and I could almost hear the shadows whispering again, murmuring secrets just beyond the threshold of understanding. The door at the far end gleamed with a hint of warmth, almost inviting us. I rushed towards it, hope reignited. This could be it. "Ashley, wait," she warned, but I couldn't stop now. I reached for the doorknob with the key clutched tightly in my palm. "Please work," I whispered. I inserted the key into the lock and twisted it with bated breath. The door swung open with a heavy groan. I peeked through, squinting against the brightness beyond. A sunlit landscape stretched out before us, rolling hills and a clear blue sky extending endlessly. "Rachel? Is it safe?" Ashley asked, stepping next to me, her eyes wide with hope. "I think so," I breathed, stepping out into the light. But then I paused, glancing back over my shoulder as the laughter died down, replaced by a foreboding silence. The shadows had receded for now. I could hardly believe we'd made it, but something deep down churned with doubt. Would we ever truly escape? But I couldn't dwell on heavy thoughts. We took cautious steps together, breathing in the warmth of the sun. Maybe it wasn't over yet. Maybe even this escape wouldn't mean we were free. A gust of wind suddenly swept through, carrying echoes of the laughter and whispers. The doubts lodged in the corner of my mind. I took Ashley's hand, and together we walked into the light, leaving uncertainty behind us, but knowing that some shadows are never fully gone. I still think about that night sometimes, how the line between reality and nightmare blurred so easily. I've never gone back to that building, but I can't shake the feeling that it's still there, waiting for someone else to uncover its secrets. What really happened? Did we escape, or was it just another trap? I suppose I'll never know.